Good morning. Muscle Car Corner here at Miles Through Time Automotive Museum. I'm here with Sean with his grandfather's 59 Cadillac with quite a unique story on it. So we're going to start this video out talking to Sean. He's a director of this automotive museum, and I thought it'd be a great story to hear what he's got. So Sean, very nice to meet you. Tell me about this 59 Cadillac and the story on it.
Yeah, man, thanks for having me. So this is my grandpa's 1959 Cadillac. I refer to it as Pops 59. You actually can see on the front license plate here, it says for Pops 59. That
Nice.
is the tag that my grandpa had. And when I got this car, I lived in North Carolina at the time, and I was able to get the same tag in North Carolina for Pops 59. And then when I moved to Georgia, I got the same tag again. So that's 3 different states with the same tag, but it was all started for my grandpa.
Nice.
This car, for my entire life, I had only ever seen it in my grandpa's shop. It was always covered and always sitting in his shop. I never saw it outside. My grandpa, at this point, passed away 20 years ago. And for 10 years, I tried to get this car, and it was in Roseville, California, and I lived in California at the time. So I was able to go to my grandpa's house and talk to my grandma, and I mean, I'd let her know I wanted the car. I tried to buy it. Because what happened was my grandpa had like an old bass boat, with a sparkle paint job on it, cheap, a Jaguar. There was nothing real special there, actually awful cars, but it was neat. He loved it. All that stuff gone. So I'm afraid for this car that it was just going to be gone like everything else. And this, like, from my entire life, I can remember this car meaning something to my grandpa. So 10 years I tried to get this car, failed for 10 years.
Wow.
One of the last times I asked my grandma if I could get it, she actually told me that she wanted to keep it in the family. She obviously was not completely there anymore at that point.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm family. My son was, he was 2 maybe, and we went into my grandpa's shop, and I pulled the cover over the car, opened the door, and just took some photos with my son in the car as a baby. I was thinking that was the last time I was ever going to see this car. Because shortly after that, I moved away from California. I moved to Idaho. I became a police officer for a few years. I was in the military still. After 3 years from that, I wound up moving to North Carolina. Now I'm on the other side of the country from where this car is. And at this point, it would be 2014, so 10 years after my grandpa passed away, my grandma passed away. So that was, like, at that point I knew, like, well, that was it, right?
Yep.
And I get a phone call from my dad, and I had this feeling. I was like, why is my dad calling me? And it was to tell me, hey, do you still want this car? And I said,
Nice.
Yeah, I want this car. And it was like, well, you got to hurry up and figure out how to get it out there across the country. So I got it shipped. It was on an open car hauler. I didn't have money to put this in an enclosed by
Sure.
or anything like that. So it gets delivered to me in Mooresville, North Carolina, on the upper deck of a double-decker car hauler, and it's got to go to a food line that was across the street because it wouldn't fit in my neighborhood. I'm working for Pepsi at the time as a service tech, so I'd drive over there to get this car off the car hauler. That's the first time I had seen it.
Very excited, I'm sure.
I mean, it blew my mind to finally be able to do it. The guy couldn't get it started because it had been sitting going across the country. He finally gets it started, drives it down. I didn't even leave the parking lot until the first guy tries to buy it from me. I'm like, no. As soon as I tell him the sob story of it being my grandpa's, they usually leave me alone. I get in it, and all my commute home was literally I could see my house.
Yeah.
There, so I get in it, drive it home, realize once I get home, the parking brake was on the entire time. As I'm completely unfamiliar with this car. I had to go back to work. And so I go back to work. Luckily, it was my Friday. That night, I couldn't sleep. So I got up, I went down to the garage, and I detailed the entire car. I was finishing the wheels when my wife woke up in the morning. That weekend, I took it to its first car show, got a top 20, and from there, man, I tried to do everything I possibly could with this car. This car has its own Facebook page.
Oh, nice.
Pops 1959 Cadillac Coupe Deville. It's got its own website, pops59.com. My wife designed the logo for it. I wound up getting it on the cover of a magazine locally in North Carolina. I mean, I felt so privileged. I wanted to share this car with as many people as I could. The only thing I've done mechanically to it was upgraded the brake booster system, safety stuff, right? It's
Gotcha.
got a brake system out of a 70s Cadillac.
Gotcha.
I got a picture of my grandpa, I believe in 1963, with this car, and it had white walls on it. When I got the car, it had old, thin white walls.
Yep.
Which didn't do it justice. So I got the visually, the tires are the thing that you can see. Other than that, it's just a detail job.
They used to call those gangster white walls, didn't they?
Yeah. So these are actually, they're not Cokers, they're Diamondback tires.
They're the real deal.
Well, they're actually extra wide. So these are 3 3/4 inch wide white walls. Which
Wow.
I thought popped with the Dover white top.
Yeah, it does. It breaks it up, makes it really look neat.
The wood rose color is the original color. However, this is a paint job that my grandpa did himself probably 50 years ago. So I really don't want to mess with it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, I looked at it,
It's
and
not perfect.
and I was kind of, you know, back then it was lacquer or straight enamel. And I think it's got straight enamel on it from what I can see. Can we go ahead and take a look at the motor on it? You know, for my muscle car fans, we got to take a look at this big Cadillac, big block in this thing.
You get like 300 horsepower in here and you feel none of it.
There's the beast. These old Caddies were long stroke engines. You know, at one time they were 500 cubic inch. And you couldn't rev them over 4,500. You know, you blow them. But they had a lot of torque to get these big
74 with the 500 cubic
yeah,
inch.
to get the car off, you know, out and going. You know, that's what it all was about, was the torque on these motors. Do you know what cubic inch that is?
390.
390? Huh. Well, I tell you what.
Yeah, 390.
Here's some information about the car.
There's a picture of when I actually got the car right here.
Oh, neat. Yep. Well, I believe he probably has this online with the on the website for this car.
Okay.
This is neat. Real. Is that the car?
That's actually, yeah, that's the original tires. That's a picture in Mooresville, and my wife turned it into a puzzle.
Wow, that's cool. I like that. Did you sell those puzzles?
Nope, it was just a
Just a one-time deal?
Yeah, it was shortly after I got the car because I got the new tires on it as soon as I could afford them.
Yeah. Here's a little bit of literature about some of the different Cadillacs, some of the different years. Well, I know these cars were all about the wings. That's what made these cars, you know, through the 50s and the 60s, the way wings came about, and pretty much every manufacturer had them. I see this has got the vintage air in it as well.
Yeah, that's
That was all in there?
Installed option.
It was a factory option, dealer installed.
Dealer installed. So if it had
Yeah.
factory option AC was an option, this one doesn't have it, but you'd know because the vent would be right here.
Yeah. Air conditioning was expensive in these cars back in the day, you know, when you check that box for the air. So go ahead and proceed on now. We've looked at the engine, kind of looked through the car a little bit. Proceed on with the story on how it got this museum going.
Yeah, so it was, you know, I had the car for a couple years, taking it to as many car shows as I possibly could. One thing I noticed at every single car show is this is not the common car.
No.
It doesn't. They never have a Cadillac class. You know, it's not a muscle car. It's not a hot rod. It doesn't fit into any of those kinds of things. So, I've never gone to a car show for a trophy. I could care less about trophies.
Sure.
But it would typically get people's choice, or you know, the general top just just because I've got a ton of those from this. But man, going to car shows got old.
Yeah.
It got old real quick, especially in North Carolina, where it would get hot and muggy, and I started to get tired of it. So I thought of this idea where I could put my car in a storage facility and let people see it as a museum exhibit while I wasn't actively driving it. I had no intention of it going away. I just wanted another opportunity for people to see it. So I knew there's storage facilities out there that people have, and they're shut in warehouses. Nobody goes into them unless you're getting your car pulled out.
Yeah.
To me, I thought, well, that's kind of a waste because there's a ton of cool cars in there. And my idea was just like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna create a car storage facility that was a museum.
Great idea.
That was the concept. I was like, all right, well, I'm gonna bank it, and I'm gonna do it when I've got more time, more money, and more than one car. 2016 comes, and I moved from North Carolina to Georgia. My wife and I wanted to live on a lake. We were barely on Lake Norman in Mooresville, and we were like, we want to live on a lake. So she works from home remotely. I could go anywhere at this point. I no longer worked corporate. Found a house that was on Lake Hartwell.
Oh, nice.
And we moved to it. I put all my dresser drawers in the trunk of this car and drove it down Highway 85 doing 80 miles an hour. Did not trailer it. I mean, it was a cool journey I took with my son.
I bet.
Get here, we're here for a few months. I wind up discovering some of the cool old towns and the old buildings, and at the time the prices were cheap.
Yes.
And I was like, well, investment-wise, right? And my wife does marketing and all this other kind of stuff, and we were just gonna do like an investment, multi-purpose building. And I was like, well, if we're gonna get something like that, let's have an ability to park this car in it and get it out of my garage. Because I had space in the garage, but inevitably it means something else is in the driveway, which drives me nuts.
Yeah.
And so I was looking at some places, and I got a realtor to show me some buildings in Livonia, and then she's like, all right, well, have you ever heard of Toccoa? I've never been to Toccoa before,
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it, nothing. We go there, she shows us some buildings, and I start talking, and she realizes I have this car. She's like, I want to show you this old Ford dealership. We can't do anything with that. That's not what we're looking for. She's like, it's all right. There's some cool old cars in there I want to show you. I'm like, well, just so you know, we're not buying it, but I'm down to go look at some cool old cars. So we go there, and I start telling her, I get all excited. I start telling her all these things I would hypothetically do if I had this building, which was essentially my museum concept. And she tells me her dad owns the building, and I needed to meet him. So he comes over, and again, I go through the whole spiel of what I hypothetically would do with this place. And that was kind of it. First time I had been to Toccoa, first time I met the realtor, first time I met her dad. And then kind of went our separate ways. I get a phone call the next day from the realtor telling me her dad was down there knocking walls down in the building because it was an old Ford dealership that was not being used. It needed to be restored. And apparently my thought process motivated him.
Really?
It sure did. So then I was left to like, do I try to make this thing happen, or do I good luck on your restored building? And my wife ultimately was like, you're gonna regret this for the rest of your life if you don't go
pull the trigger on it.
So I did, and we came up with the name Miles Through Time. The building got renovated. I still only had this one car. The guy that owned the building had a couple of cars. I got internet installed to the building. The guy that installed the internet, he had a 27 Model T Roadster. I took it, and it kind of just started snowballing as people started, coming in. And at the time, I offered consignment as a means to get more vehicles on display. And I really wanted to do the whole storage aspect because I thought that was the original plan. Turns out in a rural area, storage isn't really relevant. People have their own shops and all, and they don't need storage.
Yeah.
My storage clientele is very small. I still have 2 to this day.
Really?
But I don't push it anymore. But for 3 years, I built that museum from this one car to maxed out at 28 cars. I mean, they were shoved in there. It was too much. And ultimately, I learned a lot. And then I found out that in that building, in that location, I was not going to be able to do what needed to be done to make miles through time
Gotcha.
what it currently is. So I was going to close it in 2019. And then the opportunity came to move it to Clarksville, inside this old textile mill, inside of an overflow flea market space that wasn't being utilized. And in doing so, made it so that the museum would be open 7 days a week.
Oh,
all
nice.
year long. And I didn't have to be there specifically, and the museum would still be open. And
Yes.
we were just taking a small portion of this guy's unused space anyways. And I was like, well, let's give it a go. So in end of 2019, because in the original location, I was only open Wednesday through Saturday, April through October.
Gotcha.
Literally after those dates, nobody came. I could have 2 people come on Wednesday, nobody Thursday, Friday, and if I had 10 people on Saturday, that was a good day.
Oh my.
So it was very challenging, to
Yeah.
say the least.
Yeah.
So I moved the museum here. We have major hurdles to overcome here because essentially started the museum over from scratch. It took the brand, but the museum, once it came to this location, became a 501c3 nonprofit, no more consignment. I don't push the storage at all anymore. It wasn't part of the business plan. I
Gotcha.
wanted to focus on it being a full-blown museum. However, we had to start over from scratch.
Yeah.
And we had no money. I made nothing from the first 3 years, other than I was just able to keep going.
Yeah.
So here we built the town that's here in the museum. That town was built out of nothing but reclaimed, recycled materials and no money.
Really? Oh, all the buildings in there inside here. Gotcha.
And then I think of all the cars that came from the original location to here, I think it was like 7, definitely less than 10. So even then, and we're in a larger space, and so I had to start over on getting more cars, which that's actually, in doing all this, the cars is the easiest part.
Sure.
I can get cars all day long. It's everything else that's the challenge. But then we had all the things that happened in 2020 happen, which delayed everything.
COVID and everything.
Had to. The building was not move-in ready. I mean, we had to paint the ceiling. That
of
took
course.
Forever. But it progressed very quickly. So even with it being 2020, that first year we were open in 2020, I had more visitors visit Miles Through Time than the first 3 years combined.
Wow.
In the original location. And then in May of in 21, so November of 21, I actually expanded the museum for the first time. I actually took over the lease, kicked the flea market out, created Vintage Garage Antiques.
Nice.
Regridded everything for optimizing all the booth space, which is what pays for everything, including the museum. And in doing so, I took more of its space, which added on quite a bit of space onto the museum.
Sure.
It added Gallery 3, which is, we have a turntable in there, and military exhibits in there, all kinds of stuff in that gallery. And that was all part of that expansion. And I drove this car from where it currently was in the original part of the museum to now the new part of the museum, because I could bring cars straight through the front doors.
Gotcha.
When you first come into the building, that's how I brought cars in and out. So I stuck the car there thinking that's the easiest way to get the car out, because I still want to drive it. I never did pull it out through the front doors. I didn't have time. And then another year goes by, May of 23, we opened up the gallery that the car is currently sitting in.
Nice.
It's the 4th gallery of the museum. This added about 13,000 square feet. Now the car is sitting here because I can pull the cars straight out the back loading dock.
Okay,
So I've got
gotcha.
loading dock access there, and we modified a wedge trailer that's sitting out there that I can drive the cars up and down the loading dock, which is
Nice,
cool.
nice. Well, I tell you, I think that the story is something that is really cool, and capturing that about your grandfather is important to you. So all my viewers, hopefully they'll be interested in the story on this car. And we're going to go ahead and do the rest of the museum. We've got a gentleman that's a historian of this town. Oh, is his name Mr. Tucker?
Truett Phillips.
Truett Phillips,
He's one of
excuse
the
me.
executive directors of the museum.
Gotcha. He's going to go through all the T cars on through. They've got quite a few. I don't know that much about them. He's got a lot of good stories with that. So we're going to bring this to all my subscribers, and I hope they're interested in it. And it's a unique car, unique story, and then how you built the museum, I think is super cool. And that's what brought me here, was the story in the car.
It's actually been featured in the movie When We Last Spoke as well.
Yeah, and I was looking at that back here. So tell me a brief synopsis on that.
We've had quite a few producers come through and use cars from the museum for various movies.
Oh,
this
nice.
particular one was my car. It's throughout the entire movie.
That
It's
is
actually
cool.
It's the last movie Cloris Leachman was ever in, and then that's Melissa Gilbert from the Little House on the Prairie.
Wow. Man, I'm going to have to look at this movie just because I saw the car today. And that adds even more to the story of the car, being a movie car now. And I'm sure they didn't pay you a lot, but you had to got a little bit of money from that,
Yeah, not enough. I wouldn't do
Enough
it
to
again.
put a couple-
I wouldn't do it again with this car. I'd do it again with a car I didn't care about.
Well, taking a chance on it getting
Right.
damaged, is
Well, and
the whole thing.
They would fix it, but then, like I said, my grandpa painted this. So if they fix it and repaint it, it's no longer my grandpa's paint job.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to lose that.
Well, I get you there. And it's got a Franklin, Georgia tag on it. And it's just a cool piece, man. So here's some of the other vehicles we got to look at here today. And we're going to go ahead and get on through this. So, Sean, thank you so much for your time and the story. And he's going to help me with some of the other cars in here and bring this story to you guys. And I hope you really like it, because I do. I think it's super special. So, Muscle Car Corner signing out. We're going to get a video on the rest of the vehicles in here and bring it to you guys. Thank you so much for viewing, and thank you to all my subscribers. Sure appreciate y'all. Thank you so much.